Hello. Okay, so celluloid plastics were first made in the late 1900s, primarily used for combs, from what I can find out. Then Bauxite was made in the early 20th century. It was used primarily for military purposes. It really wasn't until after World War II that plastic started getting used more commercially. Picked up during the 50s, picked up more during the 60s and 70s. Depending on what website you look at, the 60s or 70s was when it started to become used mostly, or not used mostly, but more common. According to one site, 1976 was when plastic became the most used material in the United States, at least. And yeah, plastic was lightweight. It was durable. You could do all sorts of stuff with it. You could mold it into shapes. Really useful stuff until we started trying to dispose of it, and it became very much a hazard. You know, not so much hazard, nuisance, let's say. Um, Although some people would say hazard, because especially as we're going to start going into environmental factors. So didn't turn out to be the great idea people thought it was when it first came around. So that said, when I talk about the new plastic, I'm speaking metaphorically. Let's talk about something else which is now currently being pushed, and we're starting to find out possibly shouldn't be pushed as much. Believe it or not, that's green energy. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of clean energy. Would love to live in a world without car exhaust and without smoke and other stuff. However, we are pushing things which we might find trouble disposing of in the future, and B aren't meeting our needs currently. You know, so that's my biggest problem with it is we can't meet our current energy needs with clean energy. But there seems to be this push. It's like the theory is if we force people onto it, then we'll start we we can't meet all our needs with it, but we should still somehow force people onto it. Let's put it that way. It seems like a somewhat foolish way to do things. But yeah, so human life. Your average lifespan is about 75 years, mid 70s, somewhere in there. People do die before then. People do live longer than that. Technology sort of works the same way. We make a product, we expect it to last so many years. Some of it's going to break down sooner, some of it's going to last longer. We don't know. So, where are we at with clean energy? We've passed the point where people are starting to die early. And we can see the average lifespan in the future. That's where we're at with it. And what we are seeing is quite simply so the stuff that's died already, and stuff has died already, we don't know how to dispose of it. Um, the giant wind foils, look great. What do we do when those are past their prime and we got to get rid of them? The towers are made of steel. We can melt that down. We can repurpose that easily. The blades are made of fiberglass and resin mostly. We can't recycle that stuff. And Europe's been pushing the clean energy more than the United States has. So they're at the point where they're going to have to start replacing their windmills, you know, wind turbines, whatever you want to call them. And they're not sure what they're going to do with the old ones. And this is a question which is being raised now. And some of these things are, I don't know how long. I think 20 feet long was one quote I saw on them, their length of them. So this isn't something, we've got to cut them up on site to transport them away, or we got to get a long truck to just load them onto, or and then where do we put them when we take them away? Um, this is the problem we should look into before we start pushing more green energy, especially here in the United States. There's this. Yeah, I would like to get off fossil fuels. It would be nice, but we are dependent on a certain amount of energy use, and that dependence right now can best be met by fossil fuel. Actually, it can be best be met by nuclear, but no one wants to go down that road. So our second best choice is fossil fuel. The other option is for people to use less energy, which means telling people they can't charge their phone every 5 minutes, or they got to stay off their tablet every, and that's not going to go over well. When it comes to actual solutions like using less energy, people don't want to go that way. They'd rather do this pipe dream of clean energy, which there will be no repercussions for, and we're now finding there are repercussions for them. But so then we got solar. Solar we are finding is now some of the materials in solar can be recycled, but it's multi-material. You can't melt down a solar panel. You gotta break it down into constituent parts, and then recycle those as possible. There are other things. Solar panels do have lead in them to some extent. They have solder compound in them, which doesn't recycle well and is hard to dispose of. So yeah, we're starting to find that solar panels. One site I saw said they have a lifetime of about 25 years, and then they start to not work as well. And we've been using them 15 to 20 years now, at least in en masse. I think we started using them earlier than that. Again, Europe's sort of been the leader in this, and so they're the ones who are starting to replace their solar panels more. This isn't talking about I read one article out in California, a place with a bunch of solar panels had a hailstorm, and it pretty much just destroyed them. So we got to dispose of these somehow and replace them. And that's where we're at now. How do we replace this stuff? Or how do we dispose of it, is more importantly. And we're finding it's not as neat and clean as we thought of it. The energy it generates is clean. The disposal of the stuff afterwards isn't. And then we, of course, have the lithium battery. Rechargeable batteries are nice. They also have a lifetime, so they don't last forever. And yes, we are seeing that they are not lasting, or they are not easy to dispose of. We're also seeing that making them isn't cheap and clean either. Interesting. I read one article. Apparently, fracking removes lithium from the ground. And someone did some calculations, and supposedly fracking will produce lithium almost as fast as lithium mining. And it's actually cleaner than lithium mining, supposedly. So, I don't know how true that is, but it was an interesting thing to read. So there we are. Like I said, I'm not trying to say we should stop clean energy altogether. I'm saying we should find a better way. We should look at the long range consequences before we get too invested in it. Jump back in time 200 years, tell people that fossil fuels are going to destroy the environment, and they'll laugh at you. Jump back 50 or 60 years, tell them that plastic, we're going to be buried in plastic, they'd laugh at you. Modern times, clean energy, we need to dispose of it somehow, we're going to get buried in it, etc., etc. Well, you're just a shill for the fossil fuel company. No, no. Yeah, I would rather get off fossil fuel, yes, but for our current needs, it works better than clean energy. And yes, clean energy in the long run isn't necessarily going to be better. It's still going to have to be disposed of. It's still going to fill up the landfills. It's still going to do everything that plastic and fossil fuels have done wrong or poorly. That's it. So, like I said, when I talk about the new plastic, I'm talking metaphorically about fossil fuel, or not fossil fuels, clean energy, and the not clean energy itself. It's our ways of generating clean energy and the products for generating it. That's the real problem. We got to find a better way of generating it than we currently have. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in the exact same position we are in with fossil fuels or with plastic. Or, I could probably, if I did some research, come up with other things which looked like a great idea, but later on down the road, when it came time to dispose of them, wasn't very good. Now, of course, I mentioned nuclear, and people, obviously there's byproducts of nuclear that have to be disposed of. That's not perfect. It would meet our needs. It would be clean, but we would still have this byproduct to get rid of. Except for, and this is something I'm going to look into more, thorium reactors. We currently use uranium and or plutonium reactors. Back when they started investigating this, there were people studying thorium reactors, which would have produced fewer byproducts, been cleaner. And this is something like I've only read up on briefly. I'm probably going to do a video in the future just after doing more research on it. But this is something we should actually be looking in on. But no one's going to want to, because it is not just thorium reactors, it's thorium nuclear reactors. And nuclear is so much more dangerous than the current pit we're digging ourselves into with the supposedly clean energies. So, like I said, it's not perfect. I'm not trying to do necessarily poo-poo the clean energy. However, stop treating it like it's perfect, because it's not. Stop trying to force us all into it when we're going to find, we're going to end up with problems on it. And stop criticizing every other alternative people bring up, like thorium reactors, just because you don't understand them. I don't fully understand them either, I admit. That's why I'm going to do more research on them before doing a video on them. But from what all I've read, it actually sounds like the best option we have. So that's it. Just wanted to discuss that. Have a nice day.